Hey, so I may have stumbled across what might be the greatest revelation of this generation. So, without further ado, I'm going to dive right in. Now, stick with me because this story is going to get stranger and stranger as we go. And then when we get to the end, wow, you're going to really be scratching your heads and looking at the world in a different way. So philosophers have always been trying to ask basically three big questions of philosophy. Like, why are we here? Why are people here? Right? And why is the world like it is today? And what does God really want? Now, these seem like religious questions, but we won't have anything to do with religion. We're just going to look at some facts and the stories of antiquity to kind of see where the world is and how we got here and who's behind it. Because the truth is stranger than fiction. The real answer to these powerful questions I will answer in this video, and I got my notes. So first we need to know who is controlling and contributing to the world being like this. The answer is simple. The Chaldeans. The Chaldeans from the Bible. But nobody seems to know who the Chaldeans or the Chaldeans are. And that's because it never was pronounced Chaldeans or Chaldeans. Did you know that the Hasidim, the Jewish, fun fact, those are the Chaldeans. Every time you look in the Bible and you see the word Chaldeans, it's written the Hasidim. Right, it's just not spelled how we spell it in English or the modern spelling. The ancient spelling is KSDAI, and the traditional spelling is not even with those letters. It's in the Hebrew or the Aramaic. It's not spelled like that. The way it's spelled is actually to pronounce Hasidi or Hasidim. So the Chaldeans are the Hasidim, the Jewish. Today, they're Jewish. They weren't always. This Jewish title they've claimed recently, like in the last few hundred years. So, how do you prove this? Like I said it, but if you have a sefer, it says cast die. Like that's how you spell it if you were to say it in English. But it says Hasidi. The Chas, K-A-S, is from the het, it's Chas. And then the S, Sid, and the D, Sid, Chasid. And A-I is E in the Middle Eastern pronunciation. If you go to Asia, you might get die, like Hyundai. But in West Asia, it's Hasidi. So the Hasidi are the Chaldeans. In today's modern term, they spell it Hasidim. And even they say this. The book is on your screen. Even they say it. So this is a book from them, talking about them, and just to give you now the other side of the history. You don't have to read the book, but if you do, you're going to see Hasidim is the Kasdai. Kasdai is the Chaldeans. It's all the same people. But where did they come from? And to get to that, well, let's look at what they are in control of today. These are the most powerful people in the world, bar none. The Federal Reserve, The Hasidee. The international banks and world banks, the Hasidee. The transatlantic slave trade, funded and financed and built the Hasidee. Hollywood, the Hasidee. Music industry, Hasidee. Import-export, global trade, the Hasidee. They pretty much are behind it all. Let's look at them in antiquity. Let's go way back, right? Like, did you know that when the children of Israel were in Babylon, the kingdom, the rulers of that kingdom and their religion and everything was the Hasidee? That's right. The children of Israel were enslaved to the Hasidee. And this goes all the way back to the time of Elijah. So when Elijah fought the 450 prophets of Baal, he was fighting the Hillel, who was the head of that religion, of the prophets of Baal, the religion of Babylon with the Hasidee. This was the Hasidee religion. They're still practicing this form today. They got it from they claim we got it from Hillel. Well, if you actually read it in the Aramaic, the Uziel says that his text was against the text of the Hasidee of Hillel, who was leading the 450 prophets of Baal. They were enemies. Huh. Strange. So, even when Abraham fights Abu Melech, which is the son of Melech, or son of the king, Malak is king, so Abu Malak is king, or Abu Melech. And Abu Melech was Hasidee. His father was Hasidee. And his father was literally named Hasidee, and he was the son of Og, who survived the flood, who tormented Abraham and the children of Israel with Moses. But you guys don't even know about Og except for when he's mentioned in the wilderness. You have Og, the giant that Moses killed, who was the father of Hasidee. But Og predates the flood. You don't know that Og was on the ark with Noah. Oh, how do I know that? Well, Enoch talks about the original Hasidee, who is booted out of heaven, for lack of a better word. He's one of the fallen angels who came down to earth and populated or married and took wives of the daughters of Adam and Eve. Yeah, I know you guys didn't even know that Adam and Eve had daughters, right? The daughters weren't even spoken of because the genetic lineage is actually preserved through the fathers. So the father's seeds, it will continue to procreate according to that, and that genetic code cannot be broken. So whoever the father is, the children will be after that. It's the seed that produces the fruit. Like if I put an apple seed in the ground, I will not get oranges. So whatever the father is, that's what the children are. This concept, this pattern. So Hasidee is one of the fallen angels in Enoch chapter 69. And it tells you what the Hasidee taught and what sciences that they brought from heaven to earth. And that's Enoch. And Og named his son after one of the greats from his family lineage, from Cain. And Cain was the son of Gadriel, who committed adultery with Eve, who was Adam's second wife. Adam's first wife was Lilith, and she also married the fallen angels, but she doesn't count because she didn't come back to Adam. She just left and stayed with the fallen angels. And her children ruled first. And they kind of made proxies of the sons of Cain after Cain was cursed and kicked out. So when Cain went out, he took the daughters of Adam and Eve and of the daughters of Lilith and the other fallen angels who took power in the earth. That's the origin story. That's how far it goes back. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but we're going to move on because this is the origin of Hasidim, the name, and the people, and the story that the holy book of the Bible, the Torah, the Tanakh, and the apocryphal text talks about, which Constantine and the Vatican took out of the Bible to hide their origins, to protect them. So, the Hasidim, who are now Jewish, somehow, miraculously just change a name and whoop, whoop, we're this. They now say they are protecting the Torah, but they're not performing the Torah. They're not actually doing it in no literal sense at all. What they are actually doing is protecting the world from the Torah, because should the people who they helped and funded and financed and pushed to scatter all over the world, should those people, the black people, the Arab people, the Middle Eastern people, should these people come together and actually create the government system of the Torah, they would take over the world. And the Torah gives them the advantage. But they don't take over the world with hostility or colonizing. They would take over the world with charity and good deeds. Everybody would receive a portion according to what God gave them. So when Noah divided the earth and he said, Japheth gets this part, Ham gets this part, and Shem gets this part, and their children divided their sections of the world into countries and cities and areas. Son to son to son to son. Everybody would have their own space. Here's a crazy notion. Because we know that the Torah empowers or gives the power to black people in America and people of the Middle East in their lands to be the greatest nation in the world. The Torah may actually be the oldest and earliest form of Islam which Abraham practiced, which Shem practiced, which Adam practiced, which he was actually taught by God in the Garden of Eden, like it says in the book of Genesis. It may actually be the earliest form of this lifestyle, this culture. Which brings me to the first three philosophical questions that have definite answers with this idea. Why are people on Earth? It appears with this idea to be proven why certain ideas, actions, and behaviors that people think you are free to do are forbidden by God. It's starting to prove why they're forbidden through a very long and thorough process. So from the time the earth is created to today, like, it's just been a very long process to prove it. So like, if you read about Adam, it may be that the 7 days is an actual prophecy that finishes at the end of 6,000 years, right? So we may be like in the last 1,000 years of that. You understand? Like that may be a distinct possibility. It can be 5,099 right now. We don't have an accurate way to measure today. I have an idea, but that's just a theory. Question 2. Why is the world like it is today? And today is proof that the ideas and theories that we've been told not to do from these holy textbooks, we're actually doing it, and it's being propagated all over the world, and the world is in shambles. Like, everything is going bad, everything is going wrong, and you're still justifying doing these crazy actions. Like, we have no families, there's divorces, there's everything wrong. Everything is going in the wrong direction. And there's nothing we can do about it as long as we keep doing these things, as long as this system is in place. Because nobody wants to do the system that is actually found in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, the Tanakh. Nobody wants that. Even the people who say they want it, they really just want the religion that they believe in, not the reality of this actual system with these actual rules. Because, God forbid, if those were the actual rules, you couldn't do some of the stuff you like to do. Also, it kind of proves that the truth that we found in these holy books are actually real. Like, we live in a dome, and the fallen angels are real, and who they were and what their names were, and that their children's race and tribe and peoples are called by those same names. And their descendants walk among us today, like the Hasidim. How many others are there? Which brings me to the third question, which is, what does God really want? Well, it appears that the law of God is actually a government system, like the US government system, like the European government system. Like, it has a law, a constitution, and it gives rights to people and tells them what they can have and can't have, and it administrates justice. It gives people a place to live and thrive and be productive. And it defines borders so people don't have to fight over land. You get a portion this is what you have, and that's it. And other portions that are not in use can be brought and sold or given to the next generation so that They have room and space. There's plenty of space on this planet, but somehow nobody is able to get any real hold of it because of the 1% that is ruling over everything right now. Whereas in God's system, it's the reverse. Everybody gets a portion. This may be the greatest revelation that I found with this idea, these ideas in mind, in this next section. What if the black people and the Arab people in the Middle East came together and literally created the actual system that is written in the Bible? Like really, like actually literally created it. They came together and literally did according to the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Tanakh. If they actually did that, this would be exactly what God wants to happen in the Middle East. If he actually happened, right? But will it happen? Right? That's what he wants, according to reading all of the text. That's what he wants. But will it happen? Right? I mean, just look at the world today. There's nobody that could come back or appear and just blink it or wish it. This is the ultimate test to prove God is real, right? Follow me on this, right? If God is real and this is what he wants, the whole world to be ruled by the laws he gave to Moses, right? And the proof of this is found, if you go to the New Testament, Jesus tells people, the children of Israel, return now to the laws of Moses. Not one jot or tittle of that will fade away, right? Which means it's not finished. And give the entirety of the New Testament to the Europeans. Why? Because Paul said, I, Paul, am the apostle to the Gentile nations, and he only spoke to European countries. Like, that's where he went, right? So let them have that. And the black people who are scattered around the world through multiple slave trades funded by the Hasidim, and the black people who have been scattered around the world by multiple slave trades went back to the Middle East and actually started a government and a nation with the Arab peoples and became Arabized. That would be a miracle. That would actually be what God said he wanted, according to these holy books. So this might be the greatest revelation of this generation. But will it happen? This would be the ultimate test to prove if God is real. In order for this to play out in today's world, the world will have to be destroyed. And most of the technology have to go. It would have to globally fall. People would have to sort themselves back into like the tribes of origin and go back to the countries of their origin. So they would have to reverse migrate. And the only thing that can cause people to reverse migrate, because there has to be some motivation behind it, because people won't do it of their own free will. They won't just get up and say, oh, now that I know, God wants me to live over here, so I'm going to just go over here and live there. No, they won't do that. There would have to be like a global catastrophe of global biblical proportions, like the plague of Egypt, but spread all over the world to where 90% of the population died. Then logistically, we'd have enough motivation to move and go back. But it can't happen all at once because that would cause us to collapse from being spread too thin. But systematically, like you would need like a war in Europe, which kind of brought the whole world into war. You would need like this side to be against that side. Like it would have to spread around the world with like, you know, Asia and South America. It would have to destabilize many nations, many peoples. You would need a disease to spread around the world for like people to die and get sick. And that disease would have to constantly mutate to like not be able to be solved or coped by the human immune system. You know, this is kind of what you would need. Like, and famine, like, because like the local food sources would be so depleted because since it was in the control of the governments, like the governments wouldn't able to bring in the food that they control, you know, that kind of stuff would have to happen. Like the logistics kind of break down and then it kind of forces people to move and migrate and leave. You would need plagues. And this has to happen like around the world, like throughout Europe, Africa, Asia, you know, the Americas, North and South. It has to compass kind of everywhere. And even in the Middle East, like it just has to disrupt everything and bring everybody down to where we're just an agricultural society for all of the holy books to make any sense. This sounds like a test of the reality of God. Because if God really is, then maybe this will happen. If he is, it will. If he's not, it won't. We'll just progress on to the next stage of our evolution. Conquer the great beyond of space, like Star Trek. You know, they will take this colonizer mindset and go colonize another planet. You know, but I don't think any of that's even possible. So, is there a God or not? Well, let's let God prove himself. Because there's nobody that can come back and snap a finger or fly through the crowds and fix this. Nobody is going to just transport people around instantly and teleport them to another place. Because if I woke up someday in some place I didn't know, I'd be confused and disoriented, and I'd be always working to get back to where I was to figure out like what happened and then tell the people when I got back, hey, I woke up and I was over here. It was crazy. I think I was kidnapped and somebody drugged me. So it would have to be something that forces me to go back or forces people to go back so that they stay there, you know, to change. People change because of pressure. And the only one who can apply the pressure at the whole world at the same time in the right way would have to be a supernatural being who technically would own the whole world, like the God of Abraham said he was. So this might be the greatest revelation of this generation, the actual proof and existence of God himself. Let's see.